Today is July 13th, 2023. I'm looking at tdameritrade account, and I like this setup. The setup I have is that on this upper left corner, I have the Dow Jones showing me the day's events with the previous day's highs, the open for today, and the close of yesterday. And the same thing with the QQQ or the Nasdaq, and it shows me what these two indices are doing. And then I also have a VIX that I'm looking at, and VIX is gives me an indication of how to understand the sentiment of the market. Then yesterday I traded Google. I shorted it and was quite nervous when it started to pick up, but towards after a bit of time, I was able to eke out a gain and then exit the trade. So this is a setup that I think I can work with. That will help me to become more aware of what's going on in a single page. So I can see that the price range, the active movement of the price. So this is essentially just showing me the movement of the price as it moves up based on the number of bids and asks. Also, because my account is small, I use options, and I purchase the options to take the leverage that is given to me, such that and there is a significant amount of risk that's involved, as the movement in the underlying stock has a dramatic impact on the price of the options for the week. And it also displays on the right side a options price. So I can look at this, I can look at that, the price movement of the options, price movement of the underlying stock. And I can see what the chart is doing on a 1 minute chart formation, 1 minute chart formation of the options. And I can keep my eye on the VIX as it moves across the day. And then I can also see what the Nasdaq is doing, so that I can anticipate and see how I can address the concerns I have pertaining to the movement of Google, which is part of the Nasdaq index. And just to make sure that I cover the bases by looking at the Dow Jones to see how the Dow Jones is moving as well. And if I wanted to look at the VWAP, the impact of VWAP, and also how it impacts the high of the day, or this is essentially the opening price of the stock, which is actually above the previous day's high and previous day's close and previous day's low. Essentially, that's what those numbers are. So if I were to look at this, more in depth, I can look at so let's take a look at it. So essentially what these are telling me is that this is the previous day's high, this is the previous day's close, and that's the previous day's low. And it actually opened high, which means essentially the market is actually bullish. And so if it dipped a little bit, the chances are that there is a high likelihood that it will recover, because it's actually a bullish condition. So I can look at that as well, looking at a single, if this was a Forex currency, I mean, that's why professional traders focus primarily on a select one or two currencies that they trade as well, which means that if I were to translate that into the uh, the stock market, essentially securities, then I would liken that particular situation to a single stock, in this case, a Google. And so if I were to look at it in more in depth, I could look at the Dow Jones, I could look at the NASDAQ, and I could look at the VIX, and I can look at the underlying stock movements, price fluctuations. Then I can look at the impact of this stock's movement on the options, so that when I make these purchases, then I can uh, align my thesis to the movement of the stock based on that information, so that I can focus, so I can manage my trade, and I can also determine what the best entry point is based on what I'm seeing here. And so one of the things that I could do is it would have been difficult for me to go from here to here, attempting to understand uh, initially attempting to understand the direction of the stock early on, because it's choppy here. So that's why somehow I got into a situation where I just blindly entered here and waited throughout the day until I hit a certain point here where I actually made a profit. If it was any other day, it could have been a trending day, which would have essentially cost a significant amount of of uh, of trading capital. Fortunately for me, it worked out well yesterday. So this setup seems to be helping me to keep tabs on what I need to do, so that I can focus just on that one trade that I have, so that I can enter, I can manage, and then I can exit. So I have a reason to enter. I have reasons to say, okay, should I hold or should I exit? And then if there's a reason to sell, then I can exit as well, either for a profit or either for or the other part is to sell for a loss.